Welcome to the second class of the Winter Solstice Seminar. I'm so pleased to introduce Sensei Jacqueline Von Arb from Stavanger, Norway. I wanted to tell you all the story of how I first met her. So I was traveling at an overseas seminar, and there were everyone there was a sensei from somewhere, all different countries. And so each new person that you met that you touched was a new, amazing person with a completely different background. And even amongst that whole crew of storied senseis, there was only a couple I remember, and Jacqueline Sensei was one of them, where you, without knowing anything at all about them, you grab on and you're like, oh, now something good is gonna happen. And I always remember that as when you meet someone on the mat that way, then you always know there's going to be something good that follows. And so I'm so pleased that she could join us today for this class. And although I've trained with her, I've never taken her class except on Zoom. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what happens today. Thank you very much for coming, and the class is yours.
Thank you, Melissa. That's funny you're telling this story, because I have the same feeling when I grabbed your wrist first. It's like, oh, nice. I want to practice one more with this person. So yeah, there's remembering you and Ula and everybody else that came over from the United States to England for this seminar. That was fun. So thank you for the memories. So I was a bit surprised to be asked to hold a class for this Solstice seminar. I'm very honored to be asked. And there's a special wish of talking about the abilities within the disability. So it's very easy when we watch a person that has a disability to focus on the thing that makes them look disabled. And when I met Molly Sacco-Hale, in conjunction with starting this integration program I had when I started in 2016, I didn't know where to start. And she said, well, don't look at the disability, look for the ability beyond the disability. So this has been my mantra ever since I started working in this field, is to look for abilities. And once you have the abilities, it's maybe not something you can see, but you can definitely feel. And you have to be a little bit looking for it. What are the abilities beyond? And it's very relevant today when we have so many restrictions around us, or like they like to call them in Norway, recommendations. The restrictions are the same. So are we going to look at the restrictions, or are we going to look at what we still are able to do, and what can we develop with what we have left in our freedom? So we're looking actually for the freedom beyond the restrictions. So this is going to be the theme today. Many times we look at, we say that we have to bring Aikido off the mats. But right now I want to bring this idea into the mats. So when we practice, we actually practice something that we struggle with in real life. Right now we struggle with restrictions. So how are we going to practice our freedom in the dojo? So the first thing we can start with is to think of an attack as a restriction. So when somebody holds your wrist is restricted. When somebody attacks you with a shomanuchi, your line is taken away from you. So you better get off the line. But are we going to focus on the wrist that is grabbed? How can I get my hand loose? Or are we going to look for all the things that you can do while you're grabbed? Okay, so this is what I would like to focus on. So let's just start with a few exercises. I imagine you're already warm after the first session, so we're just going to keep it very, very short. Just a few exercises that will help us in our mindset. Okay, so just bow in quickly. Shomani, play. Okay, So the restrictions in Norway are that we can't touch. We have to keep at least 1 meter's distance, which is about 6 feet. But we can hold the same weapon as long as we can able to keep distance. So let's start with a couple of exercises. So the one thing that we do in Qigong is we just don't stand like this. We expand our inside. Breathe in and then breathe out. We breathe in. We feel the space between our arms and our body. And we expand our insides. Feel the space that's all inside of us. And relax. Breathe in. And relax. So now bring up your arms like this. Imagine you're inside an egg. And you can feel the egg here. When you breathe in, you can expand the egg. And breathe in. Expire. Breathe in. And breathe up. Imagine the egg expanding, but not breaking. So we don't want to restrict ourselves with a broken egg. So with the same idea of expanding, let's look at this exercise when we stand like this with the elbows on our knees, palms up. And we think of ourselves as a turtle. So we're all inside, my head's inside my turtle shell. And we do a kokyu with the hands and expand by breathing in. The head comes up. We have more space between the shoulder blades and we go up on the toes. And relax. Breathe out. Do kokyu. Breathe in. Expand everything. So push the knees out, up on the toes, and relax. And one more. Good. So this is one of the exercises where you can expand your personal space in practice. Okay. So I'm gonna ask a partner, Ashmat. So when we cannot touch, I use these sticks. And this yellow knob here symbolizes my wrist. So when I present my arm like this, he's going to grab my wrist like this. So now imagine this is my hand in there, and I can't move my hand anymore. I can't grab it, I can't push, I can't move him. So what is it I can do? If I put all my mind into the place of restriction, then my whole focus will be in that point. And then I don't see everything else that's around me that I can move into. Or even think on in the back, all while being restricted. I can raise, I can lower myself without disturbing my partner, without disturbing the place of attack. So do this whether you have a partner or not. If you don't have a partner, thank you, use a wooden chair. A famous song saying this. Just grab the end of a chair and imagine that this chair is grabbing you. So you can't move this point, but you can do everything else. So how much can you move with this point being fixed? So you can do a tenkon or irimi tenkon even, or in front. How much can you move the shoulder if you keep your feet fixed and your hand fixed? How much can I turn actually with keeping that one point fixed? Okay. In previous classes, I've talked about the seesaw. So the seesaw is a children's playground game. We sit on one end and the other end goes up, and this happens. Okay, so if I do something on this end, it affects the other end. But if you notice, this point here is still. So I can turn in all directions, but the middle point will stand still. If I apply this principle to this point being held, I can also do it with a hand, because I can not only move on this side of the grab, I can also move on the other side of the grab. So when I move to this side, my fingers will change the direction that they're pointing. And this will affect actually my partner, even though the point of restriction is the same. Okay, so we have this, foot movement called sokumen, where the front foot moves out and the other foot moves in. So if I do this with my partner here, I am grabbed, but I can do sokumen. This brings me closer to my partner. I can even touch the face, but usually I grab the hand for shihonage. Okay, but I'm not interested in the restriction right now. What I can do with the restrictions here. So this is one thing that I can do. Or even tenkan, and I would do my shihonage backwards. Right? Another interesting thing you can do is through the connection, without disturbing my partner or the connection, is to move my whole body. And then something interesting happens with my partner is that if I don't move my arm, move my body, it also affects my partner. This way or this way. When I move sideways, it will affect the balance another way. Or we can even go sideways and backwards, and then something happens. Now, I am playing with my partner's balance. Okay, so this is the kind of freedom we have when we're grabbed by the hand. When somebody is attacking us, so if my partner is attacking me on the line, this is going to be shomunoshi. So I can't stay here. This is dangerous. So my line is occupied. I can't stay here. This is my restriction. My freedom is everything, everywhere else. Okay? So I can't be here, but I can be here. Or I can be there. So don't move for a second. So this attack comes, I just move just enough for the attack to come down. But then I have all kinds of freedom to move around my partner. Or I can go on the other side here. So I'm outside this restriction here. Again, and I enter here. I can do some other things. So looking for this inspiration that I found in working with the blind and working with the people without mobility or with restricted mobility, we can find some elements that we can use in regular practice as well. Okay, so for example, the restriction of not seeing. How do you start practicing with a person that cannot see? Without the stick. So if Trond is a person who cannot see, I am going to guide him. This is a technique where I just stand relaxed and he touches my elbow. So when I move, he feels that I move and he will move with me. Stop, he will stop naturally. And I can go backwards and forwards. I don't do anything. I'm completely free here. But when I start moving, my partner feels where I'm going, my center is going, and will feel. So this is an ability that the blind people have to follow, to have this contact and to feel the contact moving and moving their center and their body accordingly. Okay, so if you look at this, which is completely normal for a blind person, you never think of it as an ability, do you? But it is. And it can be translated into Aikido ability. And Ron, with a stick, please. So when you hold my elbow and follow my elbow, I can replace my elbow with a hand. And I can do the same guiding technique as I did with my elbow. It's relaxed. And then I can play with the center, move them sideways. I enter with my elbow. It will turn around. I enter from the other side. That will make him move. I can absorb, up, and turn down. So all this can be practiced, thank you, with the basis of this guiding technique that they have in the blind community. For them, it's completely normal, but we don't never think of it as an ability. So when I found this ability, we could start building on this and start from that point of connection and then build upon this on and on and on. With people with bad mobility or on a wheelchair, we'll start with a wheelchair. And what I found when I had a demo one time, this lady wanted to try Aikido. And she just popped off her wheelchair and sat on the floor. And I said, okay, we'll do some Suwari Waza or something like that, some technique that she could do. She could sit on the floor like this, but she'd lift her legs a little bit, and her center was enormous. So I thought, oh my God. And then when we did Suwari Waza Kukiho, she would do it from sitting like this, but she could do the kokyu and sit in this position without being tipped over. And that showed me that she had a tremendous center from being a sitting person all the time. So how can we use this ability of having a strong center, of having a low center of gravity? This can be used. So this would be the point of start. The freedom of the person that's sitting is in that movement there. So the restriction is not only not being able to walk, but sometimes you have an injury, your knee is injured, or you have a hip replacement or something. So what can you do in those occasions? And I got an inspiration from a seminar, or actually a picture I saw on Facebook from Santa Cruz. And I saw a lady there sitting on this kind of chair like this. We call them mushroom chairs. It looks like a mushroom because it has a rounded bottom. So let's see, right here. So this will move forward, backwards, and sideways. So when I sit on it, maybe a little bit higher, I can move my body backwards and forwards without putting any strain on my knees, but I still have this freedom of movement that is so important, you know, this torifune. I can do torifune from this chair and just put light weight on. Actually, my legs are just there to keep me from falling off. So I can do torifune from this position. So this backwards and forwards, and I also have the possibility to go sideways. So I try to keep my axis in line with the chair, and will keep me from falling over sideways. So all this is my range of motion. So I can explore my range of motion. This is my freedom. Okay, I can't stand, but I have all this freedom. So how do you use this in Aikido? So we go from a place where we want a very strong center. So this is how I can train my centers, or if I'm sitting on the floor, doing a lot of exercises with my legs up. But once I sit and I use this, I've had CP, cerebral palsy people who could stand with a walker, but they couldn't stand quite on their own. So we used this chair because they had partial mobility, and they could change hami like this. And they can also pivot. So I can do kaiten on a chair like this. This one doesn't pivot, so it's a little bit more difficult. There's a cheap version from IKEA, this chair, that does pivot, so that makes it a little bit easier. Well, I'll show you how to use this ability. Well, actually, this is how not to let yourself be restricted by an injury. I still want to practice. So I can receive a shomanuchi, absorb the shomanuchi, turn it around, and send the person. So I use this wave motion without putting strain on my knees or hips. So I absorb, turn, and send away. So this Torifuna motion from my chair. Okay. For example, we can also do ikkyo from this, and I absorb, turn. I change my hami down, and I use the rotation to put the person up. So I keep my axis. This is even more and more important to receive and bring this to my axis. I turn the axis and put my partner down like this. Okay, now I can't show you iriminage, but iriminage is also possible, but I cannot take a partner so close. But basically, if he comes here, I will bring the partner in here. I'll bring his balance down, and I can throw like this. Of course, it helps to have a partner that gives a good response, a good connection, but and to know the technique to begin with. But we can always start somewhere, and the somewhere would be with here, change of hami, down with the arm in and out. So we can do ikkyo from sitting on a chair by using this range of motion. So for me, there isn't anything that can stop me. The best compliment I ever got was from a Japanese sensei, actually. And he told me, "Hey, Jack, you're such a tenkan person." Oh, tenkan person, what does that mean? He said that in a tenkan, you change your direction and get a new perspective, meaning you can see different solutions to the problem you have in front of you. Okay, so I can also tell you a little story about teasing. This happened to my son, and he wasn't even studying Aikido at the time. He was 10 years old, and I found out that he was teased, and he had even suicidal thoughts at 10 years old. I thought, oh my God, what can I do about this? And one day it struck me. I told him, well, let's try some Aikido. Okay, so he don't know Aikido, but he's been in enough classes, watching the classes, that he knew the basics. So we stand both of us like this, and I stand in front of him, and I hurl some insults at him. And I tell him, look, every time I tell a bad word to you, it's like an attack. So you idiot, for example, I would do a shomanuchi. And what do you do when an attack comes? He says, get off the line. Okay, so he gets off the line. So we practice. I say slurs or and something not mean, so he gets off the line. And after a while, I tell him, okay, once you get off the line, turn around, do a tenkan. So you idiot, he does a tenkan and he looks in the same direction as me. And the strength in the bad words, we imagine it keeping on going, just like a shomanuchi, the energy keeps going. And we imagine the energy hitting the wall at the end of the kitchen, hitting the wall, splat, and making noises and falling to the floor. He found this very, very funny. Okay, so you idiot. He turns around, splat, and he fell down. And this was very interesting because his mind was completely outside. He wasn't hit by the words, by the energy in the words, because he let them go by. And we did a lot of this, and it was a lot of fun. But then after a while, I told him, so why do you think they do this? Do you like this? Of course not, I don't like this. Would you do this to your friends? No, never. So why do you think they do it? So he thought a little bit about it, and he said, oh, maybe they need to feel bigger, and they feel bigger by putting me down, making me smaller. And that was the turning point in the whole relationship he had with these teasers. He realized that they were doing this to make themselves feel bigger, and he would never do this to anybody else. So why would you let them do it to you? And that completely changed his mind. From doing this tenkan and seeing this whole situation of teasing from another point of view, he got a new life. And the epilogue of the story is also a little bit funny because the new sport that he found, he left the sport that he was doing where he was teased, but he found gymnastics, which is traditionally something that boys would be teased for. But he found his home in gymnastics. He could do a lot of things that he was finally cool for. But the point here is that you do a mental tenkan, gives you a different perspective on how to use your situation. What's the restriction? Okay, he was teased, everything was bad, he couldn't get what he wanted, which was acknowledgement from these boys. He let himself stop by this. But with doing this mental tenkan, he found another way. This is what we're doing. Do we have an injury? We can't move? Is there other ways to practice? We can't see. There is other ways to practice. There's always a way. So this gives me a tremendous hope. Also in this situation we're in now with COVID and all these restrictions, you can't travel, you can't this, you can't that. But think about it. What are the other possibilities in this world of restrictions? Where is my freedom? Look at this. You guys are all here looking at me. Do you think this would have been possible if it weren't for COVID? All these new ways of connecting with people around the world, with senseis from many different styles, organizations, we're all meeting together in this point. This is possible because of the situation we're in. So I'm almost grateful for this. But you have to know the difference, okay? What's the difference between the restriction and what's the difference between the freedom that's around this restriction? There's a lot more freedom than there is restriction, actually. So I want to leave you with a thought that it's not about what is limiting my freedom, but what are the limits of my restriction? And that would be the beginning of my freedom. So there's some things you really cannot change. I can't teach a disabled person to walk, for example. but find the limits of this restriction, and then everything else is freedom. Explore the freedom. And the best way to remind yourself of this is the Serenity Prayer. I'm sure many of you have heard it before, but I'll give it to you as a parting gift. It goes like this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, restrictions. The courage to change the things I can't, find different ways, and the wisdom to know the difference. So there you go. So we'll close this and then we'll open for some questions. Okay? Shomini, hey. どうもありがとうございました。
どうもありがとう。